This month's webinar is on about companies, successful companies that are using Loop email at the moment. And what we wanted to do was to give you some use case examples of how they are using Loop, what they do. We'll also give you examples of how we internally use it as well. And we've got a couple of companies who we've spoken to and got some feedback from, and they've explained how they use it. So that's what we'll be doing in this webinar. So let's just, I just want to go to the next slide. Okay, let's just pop this open. Okay, so yeah, so my name is Fazal. If you joined the last webinar, you know me. I run the UK operations of Loop. I also work with a lot of companies, carry out demos, do talks, and carry out the training as well. So if you want to reach out to me, you can do. You can drop me a line at fazal@intheloop.io, or you can drop me a call at any time as well. Okay. Not entirely sure what's happening with this, but what I could do is just do it like this, if that helps. Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned, you can drop me a line at the Q&A button at the bottom, and you'll be able to ask any questions. Feel free to ask a question during, and if I see it pop up, I'll answer it as we go along. But if I don't answer anything, don't worry, I'll be able to answer it at the end of the session as well. We've got a couple of panelists working in the background, so if I'm not able to answer something right away, they'll be able to answer that for you. Great. And then sort of our learnings from this session, so what we're trying to achieve from this session is to help you understand how other high-performing teams are using Loop email, how they're dealing with their customers, they're dealing with their teams, dealing with their requirements, and how teams are using this one product to streamline other ways of communication. And we also wanted to sort of explain and show you how businesses are using Loop email to reduce the number of meetings that they're taking place. This has been one of the sort of more exciting findings because it's shown that big companies that are stuck on email and haven't looked at other channels are wasting and spending a lot of time in face-to-face meetings, which could be done using some of the channels that we've created within the product. And also we'll show you how quickly it is to sort of start using Loop email through your business as well. So let's start off with sort of the streamline element of it. So this image here is quite popular. I think a lot of people may resonate with this. What we're trying to represent with this is to show you that companies are using several different applications. Could be Outlook, Skype, Slack, WhatsApp, iMessage could be one of them. And what they're all trying to do is either have a place, another place on top of email, which has either their teams, either their chat, or either a place where their files are kept. Now, this is great because you get a number of places where information is safe and secure. But the problem with this is if somebody has sent you a file or somebody has sent you a document, it's always a bit of a chore to actually remember where it was sent. Was it sent on Skype? Was it sent on Outlook? Was it sent on Slack? So all these numbers, all these sort of channels and these applications start to become a bit of an overload. You start to second guess where information has been sent, what the information is, and how to actually go and find it. Where do you go and search for this information? So our goal with Loop, our sort of fundamental goal, was to eradicate as much of this noise as possible. So what I would do is I'm going to just quickly go over to my Loop inbox here. So you will notice, I've got a couple of unreads. Okay, so you will notice with Loop, what we've tried to do is really give you a place where you have your messages, you have your emails, and you have your loops. So it becomes the one place to have all your information. One thing that we've learned is that by having your information in one place, just by searching for something, just by looking up something, becomes a lot easier. Our search works through all these channels, so you're able to search for a particular file. So if I look for a file, for example, I'll be able to quickly search for the email, the file, or the people that have sent. So what you've done straight away is you've eradicated the use for 3 or 4 different applications, because your one app, your Loop app, has given you this power to actually keep your information and keep it safe and secure in one application. So searching for documents, or searching for emails, or searching for files is very, very easy and very, very quick. One of the main sort of conversations we've been having with the customers that are currently using Loop has been around what they find most beneficial. And one of the things that keeps popping up is the idea of Teams. So I'm not sure if you guys have already tried Teams or have downloaded Teams before, but we internally use Teams all the time. We've got Teams for absolutely everything. Now, one thing to remember about Teams is that teams aren't just departments. So you can have a team for a project. You can have a team for an idea. You can also have a team for a sort of short discussion with a group of people. Creating a team is very simple. So I'll just give you a quick overview of how to do that. So you will notice the little plus sign next to your team. You click this, you give your team a name, you give it a description, you make somebody an admin. Now, initially, you yourself will become the admin as you're the creator of this team. But you can add another person on here, somebody that you may be working closely with, or if you are creating a team for, say, your manager, you can then alternatively remove yourself as an admin, add yourself as a member, and add your manager as an admin there. And with Teams, you really give the power to all the users that are in that team. So I'll give you an example of a team that we have. So we have a customer support team. Now, if you click onto this, you will notice in here, just 2 people at the moment. You can click this and you can see there are 2 admins. If you go to a more sort of populated team, so for example, we've got a beta testing team. So this is a large data set of people. Now, because you've created a team, you've also essentially created a channel for all discussions for that team. So you have your live chat over here. So you can send an instant message. So again, removing the need for something like a Skype. You remove that because you have your live chat here. And then you also have all your emails here as well. So if you know that an email was sent to a team called Loop Beta Testing Team, you can just go there and look for the email that you want with the information that you need. Now, if you can click on the top, you will also be able to see all the members of that team in one place. So here, this is great. So if you are an admin, you can remove somebody from the team. If you are an admin, you can also add somebody else from the team as well. So teams have been used a fair amount by our current users. They use them for not just departments. They use them for projects. They use them for brainstorming, for ideas, and also it becomes really sort of a pivotal part of how they do business and how they use Loop email. Because currently what we've noticed is a lot of businesses are still stuck with using email groups. Email groups are perfectly fine way of doing something, but the problem you have with email groups is the information in your inbox is spread everywhere. You're left with forwards and replies, and your inbox is fundamentally very, very cluttered. So with Loops, it becomes much more streamlined. It becomes much more organized and really gives you control back of your inbox, because once you know where something is, you can easily go back and find it within that team that you've created. Cool. So following on from that, what I wanted to start off with was just to give you an example of how we at Loop Email use the product. So one of the ways that we really utilize teams and loops is by creating channels and favorites. So one of the examples I'll give you is, this is where a lot of internal and external communication takes place. So we've created a team called Hotfix. So the Hotfix team is very much a team that's focused for and used by our support team, but also it's linked in with our head of engineering, our head of product, our head of marketing, and everyone that sort of needs to be able to respond or deal with a customer query. So Hotfix is absolutely fantastic for that. And I think every company should have, if they're using Loop emails, is to have a team that they've created which really brings the external with the internal. So I'll give you an example. If I click onto my Hotfix team here, so I've created this team, I've got 20 people in this team, and I'll use an example here. So we had a customer recently that come to our support team. So at support in the Loop is our support account, and they had an error. They weren't able to log in because of an external issue. Now, what we had done, or what the support team had done, was they looped in the Hotfix team. And because with looping, you're able to have sidebar private conversations about a particular subject, what we were able to do is get the information directly from the customer. So we were able to see, okay, they sent some screenshots, we had some other few discussions, but our head of engineering and our engineers and our support guys were able to see what exactly the customer was saying. So from here, we got further information from Anya, who is part of the support team, and she broke down exactly what the issue was. And then you could see a live streamline conversation with our engineering teams, with our CTO, and with our senior developers. And so ultimately we found out that the reason that this was happening was because of a two-factor authentication. So this individual had this on, wasn't aware, and so we were able to get back to them and they were able to resolve it. But the beauty of this was really that they were able to get the information from the customer and give it directly to the engineering team. So in a lot of situations at the moment, the support team will be able to give you information, but sometimes it's summarized, or sometimes it's broken down and it's not clear to understand. But in this situation, and in this case, it was very much hearing it from the customer and having a private looped conversation about that discussion or about that email in one place, which is the Hotfix team. Now, the other great thing about creating this Hotfix team was, if there is another issue related to this, or if there is another customer with the same question, we're always able to quickly go in and look at all the emails and say, okay, hold on a minute. We've had this issue before. The answer to this issue is within this particular email, or within this particular loop within the Hotfix team. So it also becomes almost like an archive. So you can go in and out and see, okay, there was a problem with the customer, or they need some questions. So you can quickly go in to the Hotfix team. So you can go from your favorites, click into the Hotfix team and say, okay, here we go. This is what we needed. There was an issue with the screen, or issue with the emails. So you're able to go in and out and see exactly what the issue is. So that's one of the main ways we use Teams in particular, and especially with internal and external communication. A lot of the times when we do have external communication, it's done from looping in that email with it into a team or into a project that we've created. And loops are, again, extremely powerful for that, because they really do give you this amazing private sidebar conversation about a subject or about an email. So that's one example. Another example is from a company in the US. So this is a self-defense business. They have a number of people working for them. And what the main use case they had, and the problem they had, was the CEO was swamped with emails. So he will get hundreds of emails every day, and delegating on, I think he was using Outlook, was very difficult. So traditionally he would just forward the email, which was okay, but he never knew if without actually chasing that email up, he wouldn't know if that task or that particular customer who had emailed had actually been dealt with. So he moved over to Loop, and what he was able to do was when an email came into his inbox on Loop email, he would then loop in his team. And what that would essentially do was it would give him a place where he was able to delegate tasks or topics from his company. So the CEO, what he was left with was, he had his traditional emails in his inbox, but what he also had was very much an inbox filled with loops. So how I have it here at the moment, these are all loops, these are all sidebar conversations. So his inbox was cluttered, and now it was more organized, because what he could do, he could go into a particular email. So he could go into, so for example, this email here, he'll be able to actually have a look at a particular email from the customer. He'll loop in his team, and they'll be able to have the private sidebar discussion. So following up with him, this really started to save him a lot of time. He was able to, again, organize his inbox, and for him, it was very much about decluttering his current existing inbox that he had. And we've got a number of customers actually who really do use loops as a way to sort of delegate tasks. I'm not sure if any of you guys joined us in our first webinar where we actually did talk about using Loop as a support tool, and he fundamentally uses it like that. The way he delegates is he loops in people to a particular email. So we can go in here, for example, we can do this quick email here, and how he would do this is he would click the loop in button, and he will go, okay, brilliant, I'm just going to add someone to this. So I can go, great, let me just add this person. Can you handle this for me? So essentially what you're doing is, by using the looping feature, you are, in my instance, delegating this to Ziga and saying, can you handle this for me? So when I do that, now if I need to come back to that and actually have a look at what's going on with this particular task, I can click on my loops and I can have a look. So I've got Ziga there. Okay, so I delegated the task to him. I can have a look at what that task is, and I can have a look at what the customer has also requested as well, and also what Ziga's response to this is, because as you may already know, he can reply directly to the customer from this by just pressing reply all, or he can come back to me and we can have a chat about what the customer has requested. So it does give you this really powerful tool of having these private conversations, but also having these real-time streamlined conversations in one place in the application. That's another customer. So another use case, we have been sort of speaking with another customer. This is a global distribution firm. So they've got offices all around the world. They distribute sort of batteries. They've got a very large sales team. So a lot of their staff or employees are all sales based, and they use Loop very much as a basis of having discussions about contracts and about discussing deals with the senior team. So the way that this team use Loop is they will go out to a customer, they'll have a conversation, they'll discuss terms, or they'll discuss contract fine points. And what they would also do at the same time is, once the face-to-face meetings have moved to an email-based conversation, they'll be able to loop in their accountant, the company accountant, the supply chain manager, and the vice president. And what that does is that the sales team will be able to, in private, look at what the customer has said and then have a discussion around that. So for example, one of the examples they gave us was, we had a customer asking for a 10% decrease. Now, the salesperson wasn't sure that he could deliver this or he could promise this. So what he had done was, because the CEO, the VC was, the vice president was looped in, and so was the accountant, he was able to quickly have a sidebar conversation about what the customer has said by looking at the customer's original email, like this, for example. So looking at the original email, and they were able to have a quick discussion and say, hey, look, does this work? Does this not work? And if and when the accountant and the vice president came back, they were able to get a real-time answer from them if they could give that 10% to the customer that was asking for it. Again, for them, it's very much using Loop email as a platform for having teams, because they'd have a team for the sales department, they'd have a team for the marketing department to do their campaigns, and then they'd also have the team, a leadership team where the vice president was as a member, and then they'd also have in the same team, the leadership team, the accountant and the head of finance and the supply chain manager. So again, it was very much about using teams, very much about using loops and looping in those teams into conversations. So, like I gave the example, so you get the email, you loop the individual in or the team in, and then you can have the discussion around that particular subject. So they've been using it for a while now. So far so good, they're very happy with it. And, it's just been about making life easier for them and giving them this one place rather than having 4 different applications on their phones and 4 different applications on their computer. One more use case I want to run with you guys is a use case that we got from marketing agencies. So we've got a number of marketing agencies in the UK and also in our in our regional office in Slovenia, but also across Europe and the US as well. And for digital marketing agencies, this has actually been fantastic, because what they've been able to do is have teams, but unlike teams within a business, so for example, a department or a project, their teams have very much been around their customers. So they'll have a team, for example, called Pepsi or Coke or Dr. Pepper, just giving off drink names now. But what that would mean is that the people involved with that particular customer, so for example, people who are within their teams, with the marketing managers, the designers, who are focused on that particular brand, will be able to have conversations about that brand within that team. So this really helps with organization. So organization for them is key, because they're getting requests from customers, from their particular customers in every day. Can we change this campaign? Can we update this flyer? Can we relaunch this marketing plan? And so for them to be on top of everything, they use Leap email as a way to organize all the client interactions from a particular customer in one place. So they'll be able to, for example, if an email comes into the head of marketing and it's from the head of Coca-Cola, he'll just loop in the Coca-Cola team that they've created. So they'll be able to then digest as a team what the customer has said. So an example of this is if Coca-Cola have come back and said, hey, look, this marketing campaign, we need to change this promo code. Let's run it for a bit longer. How do we go about doing this? They will message the account manager or the account director for Coca-Cola. And what the account manager would do is he or she would loop in the Coca-Cola team on Loop, and then the whole project team will be able to discuss exactly what they are trying to achieve from this. They'll be able to discuss how long this would take, the impact, the cost, and also the manpower that's required to do this. So marketing teams have really sort of used Teams as a way to sort of solve problems. It's also a way for them to escalate client emails and client requests. And also it's really about allocating stuff to the right person. So within a Loop, you can also allocate it to the designer, the campaign manager, or somebody who can help resolve that issue for them. And this has been, especially within sort of the distribution teams, companies that we're working with, and the marketing companies that we're working with, is where we've really shown that they've reduced the number of meetings they're having, because the team that they've created is essentially a place where they can have this discussion. I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to read our recent blogs that we wrote recently. So one of the most recent blogs we've written on our website is about taking too much time in meetings. And a lot of the time from our research we found is that it's normally a discussion that could happen quite quickly within the right channel. With email, it's always, it's a bit lethargic. You have your old principles of doing things. Whereas with chat, it's very much direct. It's very much getting everybody involved. And one of the main things that we got from our research on this was there are always people in a particular team or department who could be shy or afraid to speak out about a subject, especially when it's face-to-face. Whereas in a team on Loop, for example, because it's a team and because it's behind a screen, and it gives you more confidence to actually get your voice heard and get your thoughts across. It gives the people with the sort of timid voice to come out and speak a bit more. And that's very much the case in one of the teams that we have. So we've got a team which is called Loop Staff. So this is everybody in our team, everybody in our company. So there's people in the US, some people in Slovenia as well, and also in the US and the UK. So this is a picture of us all in one place. This really does in the direct chat especially, and this is something I recommend you guys doing for your teams as well, if you do decide to bring your teams over to the platform, is to have a general team or have a all-staff team where you can discuss and have open conversations. This will really sort of bring down the number of especially staff meetings or staff all-hand meetings that you need to have. It gives you this one place to have these conversations. You'll notice that we talk about people coming for drinks, people sending photos, or just congratulating one another. So it really is a hub to bring all your business and all your teams in one place. Good. I think that's it. That's sort of the 4 or 5 use cases we wanted to discuss and also bring about in terms of what other companies and how they're using Loop. If there's any questions you have, please feel free to ask any questions. You can drop them in the Q&A, and I'll be able to sort of look at them. I'll give it a few minutes. We can have a look at any questions that pop up. Okay, so one of the questions that we've had is around adding and removing people. So yeah, you can add and remove people from a team, as I mentioned. So for example, you can go in here into a team, and if you're an admin, you can remove that person. If you remove that person, they won't be able to see any further interaction in that team. So definitely privacy is key for that. So yeah, you can add and remove people as and when you please. There's another question, so let's just have a look at this. What's going on? Okay, so how do you use agenda, or should I say, how do you add an event? Okay, so currently you cannot add an event to the agenda. So the agenda is very much as a overview of what you have planned. So as soon as you connect your email address, so for example, if you're logged in with your Gmail account, or if you're logged in with your Outlook account, your agenda will pull that information over from that account. So when I click on my agenda, for example, I can see that I've had the webinar booked in, I've got some reviews booked in, but it's more about having an overview of what your day or your month or your week is like. You can accept an invite, you can reject an invite, you can also show that you're tentative to an invite, but unfortunately at the moment you cannot send a calendar event. However, we are working on a fully fledged calendar for the product. That's one thing that we've had a request from a couple of people asking for a fully fledged calendar in there. So you'll be able to have that as well. So at the moment you can't, but it's something that's on our roadmap to add. I hope that answers your question. So as a follow-up to that question, so it would come from Google Calendar. What about? So the question they've asked is, would it come from your Google Calendar? What about your Apple Calendar? So if you are using your Google account to log in, it will only show your Google Calendar. We don't currently support iCloud, so if you've saved something on iCloud, it wouldn't be able to come. But I use Apple Calendar myself, so I have my Apple Calendar here. And the reason I use that is because I'm also logged in with the same email account that I've logged in with on my Loop email account. So if you have signed in to your Apple Calendar with your Loop email address or your work address or your Gmail address, you'll be able to move that over. But it will only be the email address that you sign in with Loop that will show up in the agenda. Okay, so there's another question at the top. Okay, looks interesting. I have one question. Does the client see the chat about the email, or as you call it, Loops? No. So it's very much a private conversation. So the client won't ever be able to see what conversation you're having. So as an example, when I looped in Giga, so he will only be able to see this. Can I handle this for you? The actual, am I still sharing my screen here? Okay, so so Giga will be the only person that sees this. The actual people involved in the conversation in the actual email won't be able to see anything that's being discussed in that Loop sidebar conversation that you're having. Okay, so there's one more question, I think. Let's have a look. A couple of questions, actually. Thinking about implementing Loop for our department. Excellent. How many team members can I add? Is there a limit? No, there isn't any limit. You can add as many team members as you like. Is it possible to remove a team member from a group chat? Yes, you can remove. If you add a person to a team, you can remove them as well, as long as you are the admin. And what happens to their messages after that? So their messages, the one that they've sent, will remain within the chat that they've had. But if you remove them, they won't be able to add to those messages at all. You can't remove the messages that they've sent previously when they were a member, but you'll be able to remove them as a member of the team, so they won't be able to add more messages on there. So they won't be able to communicate with that team. Good. Okay, one more thing we've got. Okay, how can we assign emails to our editors? So you can, in terms of assigning an email to an editor, so if your editor is already on the platform, you can simply get the email that you want. So for example, if they're on the platform and you're on the platform and you get an email, so let's have a look at, there we go, let's look at this. This is an email, we've got a company update going on. You can just click loop in and then you can add the editor's name. So even if the editor is part of a team, so if you've got a team that's called editors or team of editors, you can just add them here. Or if you want to send it to one particular person, you can add that person's name and then they'll be able to see the original email, and then also you guys can chat around that email as well, very much like what I showed here for you guys. So you'll be able to have the email at the top, and then you have the discussion that you're having with the editors as well. And then obviously, because what we do is we use live loops. So if and when that original email gets an update, you'll be able to see the update at the bottom as well. So let me give you an example of that. Oh, if I've got one. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go. So you'll be able to see whenever there's an update, you'll be able to see that as well. So it really does give you a place to have your editors and your team in one place. Cool. Any more questions? Let me just have a look. No more questions. Okay, great. Please feel free to reach out to me if you do have any questions. We've got our next webinar, which is coming on the 5th of March, and it's all about onboarding your team onto Loop email. So we've got some improvements and some changes that we've made onto the onboarding process, which we'd love to share with you guys. We've got a Loop bot that works in the background, and it helps you invite your team and your colleagues on there. So yeah, if you've got a moment, please join us. We'll be sending out email and invites shortly. If you do want to onboard your team and you have any questions that you want, you can reach out to me at any time. We can sit down. Our goal is always to sit down with the companies that want to bring their team on board. We'll help them and develop a success plan. We'll put some timeframes in place. If there's one or two features that you're sort of keen to have, we can look at our backlog and see how we can add them for you. But yeah, open to discussions. If you do want to bring your team in, drop me an email at Fazal@intheloop.io at any time, and I can help you with that. Great. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great talking to you guys. Hopefully catch you on the next webinar. Thank you. Goodbye.